Hello and welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris, the social media show that helps you create impact. As always, brought to you in association with our charity partners, 𝗖𝗵𝗁𝗲, who help local people affected by cancer, and Blue Bear Coffee, who help replace your business's coffee to help children that have unfortunately experienced human trafficking. Today, I am sipping on their Guatemala blend. It is absolutely delicious, and you can pick up a bag in Tombland from their store in Norwich, or you can order online. Go and check these guys out. They're an amazing social enterprise. And also, this podcast is sponsored by Oliver Hill from Hill Coaching Company, Limitless Film and Media, Mindset HR, and Wingfield Consultants. Now, let's get to today's guest. I'm really excited to bring on a sponsor onto today's conversation. It's founder and director of Mindset HR, Gemma Crane. Mindset HR, for those of you that don't know, get to know, these guys help businesses improve their bottom line by unlocking people's potential. Gemma, welcome to the show. Let's kick off with the why. We're talking about emotional intelligence today, and specifically within content. Why should businesses care about changing their language externally and making it emotionally intelligent?
So mindset EQ is the ability really to understand and manage thoughts and corresponding language that creates the strongest connections with yourself and others. So if you think about that in its entirety, when you go out to your clients or your employees, the communication part is really critical, and how you make them feel and who you are being within that situation is really important. When we ask people within our workshops, who are you? They normally respond by saying, I'm an HR consultant, or I'm a salesperson, I'm a mum, I'm a dad. And actually, that's not who you are. That's what you do. So the language is really, really important. And it's paramount to understand that, silence can teach you what words can't speak. It's really, really powerful. So meaning listening by 70% of the time, and that you will get the results that you need just by spending time asking questions and being who you need to be for your clients on a day-to-day basis.
What a great start to kick things off, Gemma. I think that really just highlights the why for people, and it's something that we've preached in various different ways over the years through Reef social media, consultancy, coaching, management, etc. It's like, when you're creating content for social, make someone feel something, for goodness sake, right? Tap into their emotions. What do they really care about? And also addressing your audience and making it about them and not about you, which I'm sure we'll get on to. So great way of kicking things off there, Gemma. We like to talk about starting steps, Gemma. How does a business, no matter what shape and size, get on the road with this emotional intelligence stuff, especially with their emotionally intelligent content?
Yeah. So firstly, there is a difference between emotional intelligence and EQ. Emotional intelligence is very much about the hear, see, taste, smell, and touch, and we are all experienced within that area. However, mindset EQ is much more about the proactive approach. So that's the mindset, but also the language in which you use. So it's thinking and being that person before it's even got to the emotional intelligence part. So the future is who you're being and in what you are doing. So when we look at, for example, client feedback as an example, it's very much about understanding how they feel. So when we do the voice of client work, for example, we would be asking, if I was to ask your client X, what would they say about you? And that's the emotion that you'll get. They won't say that you're an accountant and you help with their numbers and you're this and you're that and you're a content creator. What they will say is the emotional element to that. So things like, you give me a sense of relief. You're like my insurance policy. I can sleep at night. You take the pressure off. You really help and support and engage us as a team. So that is an emotional connection. And what businesses need to understand is that 70% of clients buy from emotion and only 30% buy from logic. So the power is in the emotion that you put out within your content. Language is really, really powerful. For those of you that understand neuro-linguistic programming and the language that you use, we often say about mental health, for example, mental health constitutes that you're mental. Mindset health means that you need some support with your mindset. And that's a very different meaning. So again, if you're going out to clients with your content, it's looking at removing the we's, stop weing everywhere, stop eyeing, stop who are weing in your website, on your website, in your handbooks, whatever that looks like, and really focus on the you's and the yours to create a solution to their problem, which a lot of marketing businesses already understand. However, 90% of businesses, although they are client-centric at their first and foremost, naturally at the moment, 90% are only using that as a secondary basis. So it's really important to understand that the focus really needs to be on the language in everything that you do. But also, interestingly, recently, there's been some results come out from 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗲, Gallup, Gartner, stating that, for example, in our industry, HR are the least valued in businesses. Now, the reason for that is because of communication. And all of the data that is out there right now is very much around the EQ. What is the mindset? Who are HR being, not doing? Who are they being for their organizations? And how does that resonate with their client connections, their employee connections? And what's the questions that they're asking their employees to be able to understand the underlying being that works for them? And that's really, really quite critical at the moment.
I love all this stuff, Gemma. It's so interesting, and it's great to see that it's backed up in terms of stat and not just kind of wishy-washy wisdom, right? I think that's just really, really important to demonstrate. And I also love the fact that you brought up there about people, buying logically and emotionally, and how most businesses, all of their content is all geared towards logical decision making, not emotional decision making. And we had 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀 come on this podcast ages ago now from Sales Cadence, and we spoke massively about how people buy emotionally first and logically second, right? So they're always emotion first. So a brilliant point. Joe, I want to really back this stuff up now, okay? And I would love to hear from you a story or a case study, if you like, of when you through Mindset HR, for example, have guided people through this process. They've turned on emotionally intelligent content, they've tapped into EQ, and they've seen impact for their business.
Sure. I can give a few examples, actually, from a different perspective. So first one is a business owner, a single business owner, that wanted to work on being the best self, which is one of the leadership courses, workshops that we have available, the programs that we have. And that was really about going inward and focusing on who they were being day to day in their life, not only work-wise, but relationship-wise, etc. And after coming through the program, they actually bagged themselves a very, very expensive client that they'd been trying so hard to get for 9 years. And following the program, shifting the language, shifting who they were being for that client, and in the results that they needed to deliver, they basically got that client. So in actual fact, that person will be doing a video for us very soon, so that can go out live. The other one is just a very off-the-cuff one-to-one catch-up that I had. I'm with BNI, and one of the business owners wanted to catch up for a one-to-one, so we met up, and I just gave him a couple of tips on emails and how the language that he was using was not quite where it needed to be. And following that, he came into BNI, gave a testimonial, and won 2 new clients from that very small shift. Before he's even done the program, got himself a couple of new clients. And then the biggest one, I think, is working with the Bank of America. They already had emotionally intelligent workshops within the Bank of America with Merrill Lynch, and Doug had gone in and used the leadership development workshops with the financial advisors within the teams, and they have seen huge growth on the numbers, sales numbers, but also had experienced real, personal growth in their personal relationships with their wives, with their husbands at home, and how it really had changed their lives. Last example I've got is one of my team members, let's just say, was quite cynical when we went through the workshop, and actually ended up in tears in one of the workshop and said, literally, this workshop has changed the relationship that I have with a family member, and I can't thank you enough, just by the language and the changes of who they were being for that person in their life, which was absolutely incredible. Because when you see someone so emotional because of the results that they're getting, not only in work but outside of work as well, it really is that holistic approach to emotional intelligence, which is amazing.
I love how all of that wisdom has been backed up through those, various case studies and stories there, Gemma. I think it's important. The thing that I've been pondering and wondering on, Gemma, I've been thinking about this for a while, coming up to this podcast with you today. I'm thinking that actually one of the benefits from, turning from, just boring, logical, corporate spiel to emotionally intelligent content, I'm thinking that one of the byproducts of that will be an improved employer reputation, employer brand, if you like, whereby surely if you're going to be addressing people's emotions more and talking in an emotionally intelligent way, you're going to be able to attract more A players to your business and recruit the best members of your team. Is that correct, or am I talking rubbish?
No, absolutely. So if you think about, Glassdoor, for example, if you think about, when employees leave a business, they might leave a review on Glassdoor. Other employees go on there to see, what it's like to work for X company. They will go to the website. That's the first point of contact, right? So what they want to know is, how do you make me feel when I come into work? What is going to be that connected purpose? What are you going to give me in return for me working for you? Unfortunately, we don't live in a world anymore where, candidates come to interview and we interview them, and it's all about what we can offer them, as a business. They want something back in return. They want to know that they're going to be listened to, they're going to have a voice, that their personal being is going to be well respected, looked after and understood. And, it's about, how do you best manage your own emotions as a leader, but also understand the emotions of others and how that impacts the productivity, the performance, the well-being, the attendance, the recruitment. All of the elements of the employee life cycle come into fruition just for those changes and those shifts to take place. So leaders are having to really work in a different way to convert what was logic, to emotion. And what we know is, businesses that are using emotional intelligence are 90% better performing than those businesses that aren't, and in all job types, in all roles across the board, in all industries. So, it's huge over in America. We know that. What we are hoping to do here in the UK is really drill down and get people to understand that, who they are is really important in them unique selves, and how that then portrays to the rest of their team and their clients.
Gemma, I really like to highlight the mistakes that people are making as well, actually. So at least if there's nothing else they get from our conversation today, they can see the red flags. I know that you were chatting to me about an example one, actually, just before we started this broadcast, actually. What are the mistakes that you're seeing businesses make online with their content that's obviously not emotionally intelligent? Please wave those red flags now so people can steer well away.
I'll give an example. We did an exhibition, a very local show recently, not so long back, and we went round to some of the exhibitors, and what was really interesting is all of the booklets that they hand out, the brochures. It's who are we? you know, and I was like, this is so interesting. So we were given free language EQ assessments out, and we were taking snippets of people's brochures or websites or emails, whatever it was that they wanted to chuck in there to really get them to understand the message that matters most to their audience is critical. You know, the language framework, the corresponding mindset that enhances all the forms of written and verbal communication is so important. We always say our clients are first, but that needs to come along with the website and the content and you know, the vocabulary and everything else as well. So it's there. We know that the businesses want the clients to be the focus, but the websites, the written you know, detail needs to match and align to that.
Gemma, to finish our chat today, we're going to have to do a round two because there's so much more that we can talk about. But even just this introduction today, I'm sure would have really kind of given people a lot to think about. How can people go about solving this? Where can they go? How can they do business with you? So the website is the first point of contact. All of the detail is on there. If you just click on Mindset EQ, you will see it on the website, mindsethr.co.uk. And you can actually do a mindset assessment and a language assessment on there. So what I would really recommend is for people to copy and paste a section of either their website or an email that they're writing to a proposal, and copy and paste it into the assessment and see the difference. And it will give you a scoring of where the focus and the meaning on the barometer and how that shows where the improvements need to be. And you will clearly see the difference when it is rewritten in the language EQ. Gemma, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing all of that wisdom and insight. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me. And if any of you have got any questions, hey, why not drop them in the comments section when we're sharing all of this content on social media. I'm sure Gemma would be more than happy to steer you in the best direction when it comes to turning your content into emotional, intelligent content. Yes. Thank you so much for once again tuning into A Coffee with Chris, and I will see you this time next week for another one.